2021 has seen the release of one of the most critically acclaimed films in the DC Extended Universe, The Suicide Squad, directed by James Gunn. I didn't love the film because I found the plot generic and the focus scattered, but with a solid cast, an impressive level of violence, and genuine drama, as well as Gunn's signature brand of comedy, it was a passable diversion. But amongst the treasure trove of absolutely abysmal films in the DC Extended Universe, there lies a prequel to that movie, which many have deemed to be worse than Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Ho 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 ho! Delightfully devilish, Seymour.
Yes, everybody, welcome back to Delightfully Devilish, the show where we discuss films that all at once meet the criteria of being the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm your host, Jukebox Harry, and today we're going to be looking at one of the most mishandled superhero films in all of existence. Suicide Squad is a 2016 superhero film directed by David Ayer, the creator of such films as the critically acclaimed crime thriller End of Watch and Fury, the best war film I've seen in a very long time. Unfortunately, he also directed Sabotage, which despite having a good cast and some solid action scenes, had way too many plot twists and unlikable characters for its own good, and Bright, an overtly politically charged crime thriller masquerading as a fantasy movie. The rest of his movies have been mixed to negative, and I haven't seen them. Suicide Squad had a widely publicized problematic production, which I will try to condense into a few sentences for you. The critical backlash and underwhelming box office results of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice led Warner Bros. To reconsider their approach to the DC Extended Universe. At the time, Guardians of the Galaxy had taken the world by storm thanks to the Suicide Squad director James Gunn's visionary mix of spectacle, humor, and a jukebox soundtrack. And through frantic studio cuts and reshoots, they opted to try to achieve the same thing. Two different versions of this film tested with audiences: the director's cut and a renegade cut hastily edited by the guy who did the trailer. Unfortunately, even though the director's cut actually tested a whole lot more positively with audiences, Warner Bros. Decided to try to mishmash the two cuts into a single Frankenstein of a Suicide Squad movie. And it's glaringly obvious. When I first went and saw this film at cinemas, I was so underwhelmed by it that I passed out of absolute boredom. Now, when discussing the absolute worst film in the DC Extended Universe, you'll get a variety of different opinions. A lot of the most hardcore fans dedicated to the franchise, known as Snyderbots, will tell you that it's Shazam, because that is the least Zack Snyder film. It's also the most critically acclaimed, and in my opinion, the absolute best DC film. Other people will tell you Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I, in my opinion, agree that that is the worst film because it is so pretentious and stuck up. Even though Snyder did mature as a filmmaker when he moved on to make the Snyder Cut of Justice League. But frequently, a lot of people will say Suicide Squad, and this seems to be a general agreed opinion behind the two sides of the Snyder spectrum. So, is this film actually worse than BVS? Well, I have to fucking find out now, don't I? Suicide Squad begins with the song House of the Rising Sun playing as the camera pans over a prison. I remember hearing this song when I first saw the movie at cinemas and thinking, damn, I love this song, this might actually be a good film. That was horribly misleading. Also, watching an African American getting abused by cops is a pretty uncomfortable thing to see in a post-George Floyd world. It was happening in a pre-George Floyd world as well, but it's just a whole lot more confronting now. In the intro scene, you'll notice that a lot of cutting happens. Most shots barely even last a few seconds. And remember, that's how Armageddon was edited, with quick cuts fired at you like a machine gun stuck on auto fire for 2.5 hours long. Now, that is one of my favorite good bad films, but I've got nothing objectively good to say about how it was edited.
We got a choice tonight. What we got here? We got chocolate, strawberry, or vanilla?
We have vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry.
Back in 2016, I went through a phase where I was absolutely obsessed with Beavis and Butthead, so when this scene actually played out in the cinemas, I really struggled not to laugh. Two other songs play before the film is even 4 minutes over. With all the cutting back and forth through time periods and song shifts, it feels like you're watching one long trailer for a film. And frankly, that's what most of Suicide Squad ends up feeling like, thanks largely to the fact that half the movie was edited by the guy who did the trailer.
It's taken some work, but I finally have them. The worst of the worst.
Yeah, that seems pretty possible so far.
Floyd Lawton, aka Deadshot. But everyone has a weakness, and a weakness can be leveraged. His is an 11-year-old honor student in Gotham City.
Deadshot gets captured when Batman drops in on him, challenging him to a terribly lit and poorly edited fight scene.
Daddy, please.
Zoe, move!
Please, Daddy, don't do it.
Uh-oh. Someone has some daddy issues.
Apparently Suicide Squad wants to substitute the word Martha for daddy. Yeah, that's the new cringe term. The film expects audiences to get a full grasp of the characters through a mix of on-screen text, an excess of flashbacks, and constantly changing songs. And this scattered, lazy editing style really leaves the film unable to have any kind of consistent flow, so it will seem really jarring.
Girl Quinzel. You know, I live for these moments with you. What do you got?
Got you a kitty.
Oh my god. Okay. There are certain moments in a film where after you've seen it, you know there is no possible way you're going to enjoy the rest of the film. In Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins, it was when the first fight scene popped up and we saw the excess of shaky cam. With Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, it was the moment that Poe said these words.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
And with Terminator Dark Fate, it was the moment John Connor was killed, even though the rest of the film was a decent action movie if you ignore how insulting that decision was. With Suicide Squad, it was when Joker came on screen. Not specifically because of Jared Leto's performance, but because Joker is possibly the greatest villain in every form of media ever, possibly, and he deserves an entrance that really stands up to that. In Tim Burton's Batman, he emerged from the darkness after audiences had gained an understanding of his descent into madness. With Joker, it was the same idea when the character came onto Murray Franklin's talk show. And with The Dark Knight, it was removing a mask after pulling off a flawless bank heist and being the only surviving criminal. In Suicide Squad, we just cut to a flashback and there he is. No hype, no grand entrance, not even enough running time to let audiences feel anything yet. He's just there, which is nothing short of a cinematic injustice, which I really can't believe the studio failed to realize.
I did everything you said. I helped you.
You helped me by erasing my mind what faded memories I had.
This doesn't feel like the Joker. This doesn't even feel like the performance from an Oscar-winning actor. This feels like they pulled some random guy off the street and said, you there, act vaguely psychotic.
Oh, I'm not gonna kill you. I'm just gonna hurt you. Really, really bad.
Terrible. Take a lap. They became the king and queen of Gotham City.
I'm your king.
Well, I didn't vote for you.
The itch in my crotch. Oh, the infamous Harley Quinn.
And when he's not just being a criminal in face paint, he's doing a really half-assed Ace Ventura impression.
You are my guests to this handsome hunka-hunka.
Your number's still 911? Oh, righty then.
Also, they keep dropping color filters to try to give the film a stylishly uneasy mood because the editors couldn't figure out a way to competently develop an uneasy atmosphere. Then we get a car chase, which was clearly cut down by furious editing and thus boring as hell. Move over shitty chase scene from Cobra, looks like Suicide Squad has you beat on this one.
But the bat got her too. She's in the same hole as Deadshot. And then there's the Aussie, Digger Harkness. Or as the tabloids call him, Captain Boomerang.
I can't believe they went with Jai Courtney for this film. Not only is he the least Australian actor in Hollywood, he's also the star of many of the worst action films to come out in the past 10 years. I, Frankenstein, Terminator Genesis, the Divergent series, and the fifth Die Hard, which any other time of day I would vehemently deny the existence of.
Go and get the car.
He robbed every bank in Australia at least once. Then he came to America for a fresh target set.
I don't believe him as a competent bank robber. I don't even believe him as the hardcore bogan he's trying to pretend he is. Frankly, I'm surprised Jai Courtney has a career.
And have you heard of the pyrokinetic homeboy?
No one has ever heard of the pyrokinetic homeboy.
This LA gangbanger thought he was king of the world until he lost his queen.
Oh, can we stop using king and queen metaphors? You've used it twice in the same scene already. And with Killer Croc, it's just way too obvious that we're looking at an actor in makeup. I don't believe him as any actual kind of mutated monster. And as much as his design is detailed, I still can't get over the fact that the Oscar for best makeup and hairstyling went to this film when Star Trek Beyond came out the same year and they achieved monumental things with makeup and prosthetic effects.
So they treated him like a monster. And he became a monster.
Stop saying monster.
I saved the best for last.
I doubt it.
Archaeologist Dr. June Moon. She opened something she shouldn't have.
I would have thought a professional archaeologist would bring an item home and study it instead of just breaking it open right then and there.
Releasing a metahuman more powerful than any we've encountered. The Enchantress.
You want to put our national security in the hands of witches, gangbangers, and crocodiles.
We having a gangbang?
Oh my God, get the hell out of my way.
You take the finest special forces officer this nation has ever produced, Colonel Rick Flag.
Hey, what's up, RoboCop?
All these character intros feel exactly like the scene in Armageddon where we saw all the people being recruited by NASA to go into space and stop the asteroid from hitting Earth. At least that movie wasn't pretentious about it though, it knew how silly it was.
What if Superman had decided to fly down, rip off the roof of the White House and grab the President of the United States right out of the Oval Office?
Well, if that happens, then Zack Snyder will have another really, really boring film to give to us.
Are you the devil?
Maybe.
Just shut up.
Yo, S.A. Hola, amigo. Put that burrito down. You got visitors, man.
You racist motherfucker!
The CGI is also really ugly in spots, such as this unconvincing CGI fire crown.
That ain't me.
That wasn't you.
Wasn't me.
They bring Deadshot in to show off his skills with a gun.
Ames, if this man shoots me, I want you to kill him. And I want you to go clear my browser history.
This is actually the first time I've seen Ike Barinholtz in a film where he wasn't funny. Frankly, this whole scene isn't the slightest bit necessary. Watching Will Smith fire blanks and sparks occurring on stationary targets isn't exciting. We might as well just see his skill set in actual action later on. But then again, we already did that with the character's intro earlier. With Suicide Squad running 134 minutes long, cutting this scene would better the pace.
Alright, now you know what you're buying. Let me tell you the price. Best schools. Y'all gonna pay for my daughter's whole education. And her grades start slipping, I need you to white people that thing. You know how y'all do.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Deadshot is traditionally a Caucasian character. Now, I have no problem with an African American being cast in the role, but to do that and then just give such lazy racial humor to the character for this one line.
Such a cliche.
I have friends too, you know.
There you go. Call. But without you minding her, your lady friend stays here strapped to a board in a drug-induced coma.
They warned me about you.
Viola Davis's entire arc in this film is that her character is meant to be worse than the villains, but she's so emotionally flat that she couldn't be less convincing or more boring.
The dumbass didn't believe the stories.
Nobody does.
Nobody does.
Also, Jared Leto can't portray a good enough insane character, so the props department surround him with knives to try and compensate.
Can I go, man? What's going on, man? This is crazy.
Blah, 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 blah.
I have really never seen a worse Joker, and that includes Kevin Malone's 5-second stint in makeup on that episode of The Office.
Damn it, Creed. I've been up since 4.
After nothing happens in this movie for the first 35 minutes, out of the blue, the previously unmentioned brother of the Enchantress is summoned, and he looks like Garrus from Mortal Kombat if you ordered him off Wish. But to its credit, the one thing this film does get right is following the proper procedure for performing CPR.
No pulse. Starting compressions.
Anyway, Garrus starts attacking, so the Suicide Squad is unleashed to spring into action, and we get the first action scene, a whole 40 minutes into the film, with Joker's men going Columbine on a government facility, and Garrus destroying everything in its path. But of course, it's all meaningless destruction, as is the generic motive of these two to destroy the world with a sky tower.
This is the worst day of my life.
The worst day of your life so far.
What do we got here? 12 pounds of shit in a 10-pound sack.
Oh, are you carrying the entire DC Extended Universe in that sack?
Here comes Slipknot, the man who can climb anything.
He can climb anything. That sounds like bare minimum criteria for putting someone on an elite soldier squad. Then of all songs, Without Me by Eminem starts playing. None of these songs are really consistent with each other, they just jump from one genre to another. But I remember when I saw this film at cinemas, I fell asleep during the character introductions, and when I woke up, this song was playing. And I really didn't care what I had missed, because the story had progressed nowhere by this point. So yeah, that nap was much needed. Also, Captain Boomerang has a unicorn, because comedy.
What?
Yeah, you want to get used to sexualization being the key focal point of Harley Quinn in this movie.
Something tells me a whole lot of people are about to die.
Also, that hammer, that never gets used in the entire film, so enjoy it now.
Behold the voice of God.
Oh, I thought she was the devil.
There's an active terrorist event in Midway City. I want you to enter the city, rescue HVT-1, and get them to safety.
So that's it? What, we some kind of suicide squad?
Oh, that's why they call it that.
That is a very strong contender for the worst line in the film. That's the kind of line that movies like Hot Tub Time Machine were mocking.
It must be some kind of hot tub time machine.
And yet it still isn't actually the worst line in the film. We'll get to that later. Suddenly a new member joins the team.
Now please, enlighten me. Who the fuck are you?
This is Katana. She's got my back. She can cut all you in half with one sword stroke, just like mowing the lawn. I would advise not getting killed by her. Her sword traps the souls of its victims.
Right. So that does sound like an interesting character, but Katana gets pushed into the background for the entirety of the film, so this is the most you're going to get of her.
Whoa, easy, cowgirl. Ain't that kind of a mission. Have a seat.
Why would he want you to kill them? He's obviously escorting them alive for a reason.
That is a good question. And Scotty?
You know the dark places too. Don't act like you don't. I'm a soldier.
Sounds like he's singing Soul Man.
I'm a soldier.
They get shot down in yet another testament to how much this movie really hates helicopters.
Kobe!
Captain Boomerang convinces Slipknot to escape. So he joined last minute, was given no personality, said almost no lines, and then was killed off just like that. You know, if you actually thought the character development couldn't get any worse in this film, I present you Slipknot. I also want to acknowledge that in Halloween 2016, my mate Henrik and I went dressed as these guys for a night at Beta Bar. Who wore it better, guys? The team runs into a militia of villains that resemble the Thousand Eyes Idol from Yu-Gi-Oh!, launching into an action scene which proves to be a mix of poor lighting and quick cuts. It's not an excessive amount of quick cuts, but not the most pleasant amount.
Good riddance.
Harley! He dies, we die!
Okay, I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for a moment where Will Smith actually exhibits some emotion in this film. We get some mild excitement when we see Deadshot taking down the entire army of monsters with deadly accuracy, but this would have been way better with less edits. All the cuts kind of blunt the effect, as does the inconsistent strength of the chosen camera angles.
He's already dead.
Hey, you a some elf princess?
It's better this way.
Yeah, what the fuck are you going to contribute to this mission if you're not actually going to use your powers to help fight off the forces of evil? Honestly, your recruiter should have sussed out that you were reluctant, and yet... No, it actually makes more sense that he didn't, because that would require them to write something, so... Okay, scrap that statement.
Smashy, smashy. I don't approve of that.
Seriously.
We're bad guys. It's what we do.
Also, take a shot every time Harley Quinn's butt is the focus of a shot. Seriously, more attention is given to Margot Robbie's derriere than Joker in this film. He is little more than a glorified cameo. The squad then enters into an office where we get a slightly better fight scene. The quick cuts tone down and there are some nice shots, although the lighting and monochromatic color remain unpleasant to look at.
Let me fight! You die, we die!
Yeah, we heard you the first time. Thank you, Will Smith. Diablo once again stands around doing nothing until Deadshot pressures him into burning it all down.
You ever been in love?
Nah, never.
Bullshit.
You don't kill as many people as I've killed and still sleep like a kitten if you feel shit like love.
And that, my friends, is the single worst line in the entire script. And boy, have we had some doozies, but nothing in the film is as fucking awful as that line right there. Remember, Deadshot is in prison because of his love for his daughter. The emotionless badass gave himself up because his daughter said the word daddy. I don't know how many rewrites the script on this film went through, but it's clear that whoever wrote the finished draft that ended up getting used in this film completely forgot that earlier in the script, Batman was let loose by Deadshot because he couldn't bring himself to shoot him in the head because his daughter said the word daddy. Badass, my ass, fuck you! I also want to stop and say that I actually put quite a bit of emotion into saying fuck you there. And that's more emotion than you get from Will Smith in this film, so maybe I'm a better Deadshot than he is. I know that's a really, really fucking egotistical thing to say, but he's really not at his best in this movie. Then we find out that, get this, the mission the squad was sent on was to rescue the head of the operation. That's it. That's the best thing the writers could come up with. The person who recruited them and made them into a suicide squad then sends them on a mission to rescue her. That was, all the things they could have picked, and they went with that. They went with rescuing one of the most unlikable characters in the film. Then she kills all the FBI agents, because this is how the filmmakers think they characterize her as a badass. Of all the terribly written characters in this film, Amanda Waller really is the worst. They don't flesh her out, give her any substance, give her any real flicker of emotion or development or anything. You know, at least with Joker they tried, even if they got an absolutely terrible result.
That is just a mean lady. And I'm the bad guy.
This is the idea behind Amanda Waller, a character so cold and inhumane that she's more of a villain than the psychopaths she recruits. And Viola Davis puts no emotional commitment into the character whatsoever because she's directed to play the character as an idea and not as an actual character. Viola Davis is a very talented actress and she deserves way better than this.
As gangster.
No, it's not.
Like a boomerang, Joker returns to rescue Harley Quinn.
Kill Harley Quinn. Do it for your freedom and your kid.
Oh, I guess if he doesn't feel love, then this shouldn't be a problem.
Do it.
I missed.
Ooh, feisty little thing.
And like a boomerang, Joker gets thrown away once again when yet another helicopter gets shot down. Harley Quinn survives, but Joker goes down with a chopper. And of course, every single person ever watching this film knows that Joker has survived. That rule about how you have to actually see characters die on screen for their deaths to be real, that's been so fucking overdone at this point. Like, come on, Suicide Squad. At least try to use fresh cliches. Amanda flies off, leaving the squad behind. Then, surprise, surprise, her helicopter gets shot down and she gets taken captive.
Now tell me how to destroy your armies.
You can just take them out with gunshots or blunt instruments. I mean, your brother's been murking them for hours, idiot. After the team makes the shocking discovery that the Enchantress is up to something evil, which we as an audience already knew at this point and then have to relearn by watching flashbacks to things that we have quite literally already seen, they give up and decide to drown their sorrows in alcohol.
Ninja, you want some sake?
Damn. Just when you thought racism couldn't get any more racism.
Flag had you chasing a carrot on a stick, homie. You don't know that?
I love this guy.
You played yourself, dog.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
I don't kill women or children.
Okay, children I can understand because we have enough anti-vaxxers killing children in the world, but you don't kill women? Come on, both Amanda Waller and Harley Quinn are testaments to the fact that women can be vindictive supervillains and deserve the same fate as their male counterparts. Like, come on, you're not being very politically correct. After Diablo gives a speech about how he killed his wife despite leaving her with no signs of being burnt or injured, and Rick Flag flees the squad from any threat of execution, Deadshot decides to save the world.
My daughter is going to know that her daddy is not a piece of shit.
I'll come.
Okay, you got me. That's the one moment I did unironically giggle watching this movie. Also, in retrospect, this scene really tried to slow down and humanize the characters. Although it's a little too late at this point, this scene really went for some substance, and I respect the fact that they did try.
Man who killed her husband used that sword. His soul's trapped inside of it. She talks to him.
Jesus, Rick Flag has to personally condescend the audience every single time because that is so much easier than, you know, actually giving character development to Katana, just having some white guy explain it all for her. The squad goes to confront Enchantra Delavine.
Lady, you are evil!
Will Smith, you've got a talent for one-liners, and that's all you could say. That's all the writers could come up with, that's all you could come up with. The filmmaker saw that and thought, yeah, that's an adequate line of dialogue. Along comes Garrus.
I lost one family, I ain't gonna lose another one.
Oh, shut the fuck up, Toretto. Diablo flames on, which leads to a clash of two equally unimpressive CGI monsters. The squad then detonates an underground explosive, killing them both, but it doesn't thwart the witch's plan.
That was our main satellite uplink.
Then, what was filming it? After the squad battles her in arguably the worst lit fight scene in the film so far, they toss a bomb into the core of the tower, then blow it up. Enchantress dies, but the archaeologist survives, and despite saving the world, Amanda remains completely unsympathetic.
Darling, I'm walking out of here free man, or we're gonna start having some real fun.
Why don't we have some fun?
Well, you'd be the only ones.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?
Who in the fuck thought Bohemian Rhapsody was an appropriate song to put in this scene? Seriously, whoever did that needs to really reconsider their Spotify algorithms. It turns out that Joker survived.
I did not see that coming!
He breaks Harley Quinn out of jail. The credits roll and a post-credit scene reveals Amanda handing over information to Bruce Wayne about the Flash and Aquaman. And why you would have this as a post-credit scene in Suicide Squad when we already saw that scene in Batman v Superman where Bruce Wayne comes to the realization about the existence of these characters. These filmmakers don't know how post-credit scenes work. Whatever. Is Suicide Squad a good film?
Good God in heaven, Newbie, there are just so very many ways for me to say this to you. Never, not in a million years, absolutely not. No way, Jose, no chance, Lance, and yet, negatory, nah, and of course my own personal favorite of all time, man falling off of a cliff. No! Dr. Cox?
Straight off the bat, I want to say that no, Suicide Squad is not worse than Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. They're both awful films, but for different reasons. BVS was horrible because Zack Snyder had a pretentious and self-indulgent vision for the film which he stayed relentlessly true to the detriment of the writing, pacing, and some of the acting. He had yet to mature and refine his craft as much as he did on his cut of Justice League, so his auteur vision was way too Zack Snyder for its own good. With Suicide Squad, the film has no true director's vision. With hasty studio interference and a whopping $22 million worth of reshoots interfering with David Ayer's vision, Suicide Squad is wildly inconsistent with tone, pacing, characters, and writing. It never commits to anything, never fulfills any kind of mood, and thus fails to really elicit any kind of emotional response. BVS did elicit a feeling in me, but it was a feeling of anger, of frustration, of sheer hatred at the fact that some filmmaker would want to subject me to watching that piece of shit. Suicide Squad just didn't make me feel anything at all. It was just that flat. So when it comes to deciding which one's worse, you have to figure out, is it the movie that made you hate it, or is it the movie that made you feel nothing? And realistically, I've got to lean towards the angry response. That being said, the casting of Ben Affleck as Batman in Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, that decision was the best acting performance we got from either movies. So that's the one area where it does reign supreme. I'll never apologize for appreciating Batfleck. With Suicide Squad, there is hardly a thing you can't criticize about the film. While I will give it some props for its production values, the costumes, and some of the makeup choices, while still maintaining that the Oscar was deserved elsewhere, the film is still a very far cry from a spectacle. Honestly, David Ayer is really miscast as the director of Suicide Squad. While he does know how to frame a spectacle for an action film in the right movie, it's not a crime thriller that he's working on in Suicide Squad. He tries to make it into that, but he also doesn't really have the refined knowledge on how to understand a superhero film, and it shows. His efforts to make the film into a crime narrative are through his use of the Joker as a crime lord and the moral guidelines of who is the real villain in the story, but none of these themes really evolve into anything. They may have in the original cut of the film because Joker is said to be the main villain in the Ayer cut, but even then I just don't see it working. Also, he shoots the action scenes with the same monochromatic color palette and poor lighting which bludgeon the action in BVS. So while Suicide Squad is far removed from Snyder's style, it doesn't exactly escape it. At least the action is less CGI heavy in this film and thus less animated, but it's still nothing to boast about. And the story in Suicide Squad is completely segmented. The first half of the film is the first half of Armageddon, a series of furious quick cuts and changing songs, steadily introducing audiences to a group of misfit characters and a catastrophic threat that they have to defy. Armageddon is enjoyable as a good bad film because it's so pretentious and over the top that it becomes laughable, but Suicide Squad is so bent on actually trying to be serious about everything and it just doesn't end up ever being funny. And the second half of the film is the plot of Escape from New York. Characters have explosives planted into them before being flown into the middle of a dangerous American city with the task of rescuing an important government figure and preventing a catastrophic threat. Escape from New York succeeded for every single reason that Suicide Squad failed, but more than anything because it had a daring script. It had the ambition to tell an anti-establishment story and really tackle some darker themes. Suicide Squad pretends to be anti-establishment, but at its core, it's really just a very generic superhero-themed action movie. Its heroes are hardly villainous at all, they end up saving the world just because the story says so. Neither of these two segmented halves in the film feel good. The first half is rushed, choppy, and completely senseless. The second half is slow, conventional, and just plain dull, so the film never hits any kind of a stride. But at least the second half of the film has more consistency to it, and it does feel more Ayer-esque than the first. However, the major hook for Suicide Squad is the cast of mismatched characters because it's their job to carry the film through its generic plot and keep audiences enjoying the film with their banter. But through a mix of poor direction, poor editing, bad writing, lack of characterization, and some pretty flimsy performances as well, nobody really gets off scot-free. And this is sad because DC Comics honestly have the best villains. Will Smith leads the ensemble playing Will Smith, not Deadshot. Admittedly, I haven't read the Suicide Squad comics, so my interpretation of the character isn't informed by the source material, but I've seen enough Will Smith films to know when he's playing a character and when he's playing Will Smith. 99% of Will Smith's dialogue is an emotionless smartass delivery of sitcom dialogue, and very few instances of actual emotion. And yet we're meant to pretend that this guy is the most badass, emotionless, unstoppable assassin that there is. I didn't believe it for a second. He almost never wears the iconic Deadshot mask because, like with 1995's Judge Dredd, the studio wants the star power over the character, and it shows. Will Smith plays a stereotypical on-screen persona with no flair of inspiration, and it feels like a tired and boring routine for him at this point. And Viola Davis is just awful. She is a perfectly talented actress who does exactly what the script and direction demand from her, but it demands that she be such a one-dimensional government archetype that she consistently falls flat. She isn't unlikable because we're meant to hate the character of Amanda Waller. She's unlikable because she's an obnoxiously boring character with neither a personality nor an actual intimidating lack of emotion. And now we have to talk about Jared Leto, because his role in this film was highly publicized. He refused to break character during production. He was so relentlessly dedicated to the role that Will Smith said he never actually met Jared Leto and only ever met the Joker. He also sent used condoms to his fellow castmates, because that's apparently what Joker would do. And he practiced his Joker laugh out in the streets to try to see which one would make people the most uncomfortable. He put that much dedication and character acting into the role that ended up being the single worst portrayal of Joker ever put on screen. To be bleak, Jesse Eisenberg's awful portrayal of Alexander Luthor Jr. in BVS was a way more convincing Joker than Jared Leto's Ace Ventura audition, and I don't want to devote any more time to this character because the film obviously didn't care enough to show him, so I'm not going to talk about him either. And then there's Cara Delevingne, who was cast in this film back when studios were still trying to pretend she was suited to big budget films. Of course, they actually cast her before a script was even written, and it really shows. Most of her role is a physical one, with her dialogue heavily altered so it's nowhere near the atrocious display that she gave in Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. But the biggest thing you can say about her is the fact that she looks like a wacky, wavy, inflatable, arm-flailing tube man with CGI wings designed by the team that animated the cape from the Spawn movie. She is a generic villain cast for her appearance, and even then it was hard not to get distracted by the way she walked flamboyantly to not expose her crotch. As for the rest of the cast, Jai Courtney looks like he's having fun, but he's neither a convincing supercriminal nor a legit bogan. Adewale Akinyoye Abaje read decades of comics and studied cannibalism for his role, only to end up speaking 8 lines, and Kitano is reduced to being a generic samurai archetype and a background character. Admittedly, Jay Hernandez is okay. He often embodies a real Mexican stereotype and has little to do for most of the film, but his drama is at least sincere. And Joel Kinnaman is decent as Rick Flag. He gets tasked with delivering a lot of shitty expository dialogue and being a fairly generic soldier, but he is mildly convincing in the part. Of course, the standout cast member is definitely Margot Robbie. Bringing such a cartoonish character to live action is a challenge for anyone, but Robbie has become synonymous with the role because she captures every aspect of the maniac perfectly. She's campy, energetic, comedic, and dramatic at all the right times. She looks convincing and kicks plenty of ass, and whilst the film does lean too heavily into sexualizing her, there is no denying that Margot Robbie is a pretty sight. As a final note, when the theatrical cut of Justice League came out, fans rallied for years to see Zack Snyder's vision realized in what they called the Snyder Cut. And when that actually came out, I was impressed. Having seen Batman v Superman and considering it to be the worst comic book film of all time, I had very little expectation for the movie to be good. And yet, it was decent. It was still long, pretentious, and full of scenes that didn't need to be there. And yet, the action was exciting, the performances were better, and how the film treated Cyborg was really engaging. With that in mind, I really want the studio to release the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. It may be just another bad movie. It may be phenomenally worse and pretentious like Batman v Superman. And yet it may be better. There's no way to know for sure until we actually see the movie. But as someone who hated Batman v Superman so much and then was impressed by Zack Snyder's Justice League, I 100% agree that the studio really needs to give David Ayer a chance and release his cut. I mean, what have they really got to lose from that? The one bad aspect of that is that since Joker is apparently the main villain, we will get to see more of him, which I would remain adamantly unhappy about, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Suicide Squad gets 1 awful studio edit out of 10. A couple of moments of imagery and a dedicated performance from Margot Robbie are nowhere near enough to save this movie from weak direction, bad writing, inconsistent acting, and awful editing thanks to good old-fashioned studio interference. And that does it for today's episode of Delightfully Devilish, you guys. If there are any movies you want to see me discuss on this show, please leave them in the comment section below. If you want to see more episodes of this show, please hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, until next time, I've been your host, Jukebox Harry. Peace.